We've got all kinds of stuff. Oh, come on. It's not receiving my code. I did everything I was supposed to. There we go. All right. We should be live here. Awesome. Well, Jake, here we are. It is a Saturday. We new pairing here. We've got going on me and you, and Adam's out there in Nashville, ruining Nashville for all of the what do they call them? Bachelorette parties that are out there.
Yeah.
I saw 3 different articles this morning talking about how bachelorette parties are just indignant that they didn't know it was the NFL draft weekend. It's like, guys, come on! Nashville's a happening city. You got I know this because I was out there 2 years ago for my 45th birthday and did the rock and roll half marathon this weekend. It's there. So Nashville is. There's always something going on between the concerts, the Grand Ole Opry, all of the trade shows that come in there, and then it is teeming with bachelorette parties. So for those of you having bachelor parties or just looking for a place to move, Nashville, I'm telling you, not a bad way to go.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I want to go. My parents love it there. They're a bit of party animals. But yeah, I only hear good things, so I'm pretty jealous of Adam. I don't know. Is he out there for the draft? He doesn't seem like a big NFL draft guy to me.
So this is a good story, and this is how you learn from your elders, Jake. So his friends realized that next year the NFL draft is in Las Vegas. So if they go this year, oh honey, we're just going to Nashville for the weekend just to get together with the guys. Is it okay if you just take care of the kids? Well, next year it's a tradition, right? So they're planning ahead. This is what is known as the long con.
Yeah.
So
smart.
Good on him. So
I need to learn that one.
Yeah, he's like, I just don't get to see all my buddies very often. So if they're all going to get together somewhere and drink, I'm going to be there. So.
For sure. Yeah, you'd have to.
All right, let's see. Okay, I'm getting most of our stuff up here. We'll get the tweet out, give everybody a few minutes to join us here. A couple things I want to throw out there. One, we are working on filling up the on DraftKings, the Awesemo League. So I'm going to put that link in the chat. But right now we're running a Fred Van Elite contest. You guys should be familiar with that. That's the one where I have to play Fred Van Vliet in an NBA contest. You guys can play whoever you want, but the winner of the contest is going to get rest of the season and all NBA access for the playoffs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this link. You'll probably have to copy and paste it, is my guess. Oh, it says it didn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? Let's try that again.
Seth's in chat. Just quick while you're doing that. It looks like Jonathan Creamer in YouTube chat. Thanks, guys, for the great analysis. Took down a couple DK tourneys with a 225 for 12K. That's a hell of a score last night.
That is amazing.
Congrats to you, Jonathan. That's really awesome. I didn't know if you tweeted at us or whatever, but if you did, feel free to put it on Twitter, tag the Awesemo account, because that's pretty cool. A few minutes to join you. We've been waiting 20 minutes. Seth in chat.
Let's see. The show starts at 11:15. So
yeah,
that I don't know what it said.
I think Josh accidentally put it for 11 sharp.
Gotcha.
That could have been it.
Well, not to worry. We're gonna get you here. We've got and this will be going out on the podcast stream as well. We're going to break down all the slates. It looks like the early slate is the 2 o'clock, so the 2:15 start, all the way through the 4 o'clock games. So there are 7 games there. We'll talk about the 6 o'clock game. Looks like it may be a lonely little outpost game there, unless you're playing the all-day slates or anything has spawned from last night when I was looking at the different things. That slate, that game could be on some of the other slates. And then we've got a 7-game late slate, and that'll be going off at 7 o'clock. And Jake and I will break down everything game by game.
It's going to be 6 games now, by the way. Just got one postponed. Detroit, Chicago, the White Sox must have some pretty bad weather in Chicago. They're not even bothering with it.
Good to know. So we'll have a 6-gamer, but that we'll have a show tonight. That'll be myself and Chris Spags. We'll go at 6 o'clock. You're going to have live before lock for the NBA contests. Assuming that'll go off at about 6:30 or 6:40. That'll be fast, Teddy Fair. We'll run those simultaneously. So what you want to do is you want to subscribe to that the Osmo YouTube channel here. Hit that notification bell, and it'll send you a little notification whenever we're going live. So you don't have to sit there and wait like you did this morning. Our apologies. We'll make sure that show says 11:15 going forward, but it is been 11:15 for the last 7 months, 8 months, however long we've been here.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So, just throwing it out here because normally it's Adam, and that's asking a lot to have him ready to go on air at 11:15 on a Saturday.
He's like, West Coast now, right? So
no. He's still in.
Oh, he's still. For some reason, I thought he lived on the West Coast.
Oh, he was traveling out there.
Oh, okay.
So because he went to a couple live finals, one he went to, and then one he was a +1, and then he'd stay for the rest of the week. Like, so he spent a week out in San Francisco. He spent like a week in, forget it was San Diego or LA or wherever it was. Nice. Then he was in Miami 2 weeks ago, and now he's in Nashville. So,
okay, yeah, no excuse for 11:15 his time on the weekend then.
Oh, John Sarkis in chat says, "Hey, wait for it. Wait for it. 2 to 3 inches of snow potentially in Chicago this weekend."
Yeah, there might be snow here. So I live in Minneapolis, Minneapolis area. For people who don't know, there's talk of snow, but it's going to be like 50 today. It's cloudy, but it's tropical compared to Chicago, apparently. So I'll take that over snow. I'm done with the snow for this season. I'm sure you are too, Enoch.
Yeah. We had rain and wind yesterday, but I think we've moved on from the snow at least. So I'm opening up a few things here. I'm putting the projections and the popularity, as I like to call them, ratings in here. Some people would call those the ownership ratings. So I'm loading it up with FanDuel, DraftKings, and then I'll run a Yahoo Crunch as well. It's just taking me a little longer to get everything in because normally I'm doing one side at a time here. But this should be a good one today. So I'm going to kind of kick it off. I'll let you run with this first one here while I get the rest of these guys in, because this is a good one. It's your team. It is the Baltimore Orioles. Oh, this would be the perfect Adam and Jake show. It's the Baltimore Orioles, which, as I like to say, the gift that keeps on giving, going against Jose Berrios here in Minnesota. And just looking at the lineup, doesn't even matter who's in it. The only guys I think we have to worry about for Berrios is going to be Mancini, Smith, and Nunez. That's it. And I don't even really want to play them. Nobody else has above a 160 WOBA. Pardon me, 160 isolated power in the remainder of the lineup. Yikes. This looks like a good one for Jose. We also have Steven Strasburg as our other pivot potential. So run with this one. I'm going to get this other stuff loaded, and we'll be good to go.
Sure. So basically what I'm getting for my first few crunches, and I gave Berrios a pretty conservative projection, I think. Obviously aggregated him with the projections on the site, which Alex plays a big role in, Osmo. He's going to be on the overwhelming majority of my rosters. He is kind of my number one guy. Like I said, it's nice enough here. What's up, Llama, in chat? How you doing? Good to see you drop by in the YouTube chat. But it's still good pitching weather here in Minneapolis, 45, 50 degrees. Berrios, a guy with huge home road splits, as we know, for whatever reason, like those seem to be real. Like it's just the sample's being too big right now to kind of push those aside. So for whatever reason, he's a different pitcher at home for the duration of his career so far. A team with 4 righties and then a bunch of guys that just strike out. Obviously, Chris Davis. Got Rio Ruiz being above average versus righties, or I'm sorry, below average in the K department. BR strikes out 26% of the time versus righties. So it's just hard to imagine there's not a bunch of swings and misses here for Berrios. He's my favorite guy.
All right. On the other side, we are going to have one Daniel Straley coming in here. Now he's a long-time veteran. At this point, I don't even know if we can call him an innings eater, Jake. We've got, let's see, I wrote them up because I have the Twins as my early slate favorite stack. And in his 4 appearances, Straley has an 8.6 ERA, a 1.8 whip. He's lasted 14 and 2/3 innings. Only 6 walks, Jake. He does have 6 strikeouts. It's the 7 home runs and, wait for it, 27 base runners in those 14 and 2/3 innings that has me fired up for some of the Twinkies. What are you looking at here with the Minnesota Jakes?
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of the Minnesota Jakes for me today. Barrios, obviously, I love, but yeah, Straley is a guy who I've played the last couple of years quite a bit, but he's just not getting swings and misses. Not really until his last start. I mean, 8.5% swinging strike rate, below average chase rate. He had a good start against Minnesota from a chase perspective, actually a week ago today. But still, he's got issues with the long ball. And if you're not going to be missing bats, like he was a guy with a 10, 11, 12% swinging strike rate for a couple seasons. And that was why I was getting onto him. But yeah, he's just always had home run problems. 2+ home runs in 3 out of his 4 appearances this year. So yeah, it's hard not to like Rosario and Kepler, really the top 4 or 5 guys here for the Twins. And then I love Astudillo for DFS because he doesn't walk. He puts the ball in play, and he's just a pretty solid hitter. And then Scope in the 8 hole. It's a really deep Minnesota lineup, I think. So yeah, it's hard not to be all over them here.
And that's one of the things here. When Straley is out of the game, we're going to get the Orioles bullpen. And last I checked, they had the second worst ERA, but the differential between their xFIP and FIP, which is fielding independent pitching, it's some metrics that they use to create like what would happen with league average defense, what would happen with league average results off of the hits that the pitcher's giving up, what would happen with taking out ballpark factor and stuff like that. So what it's trying to show is based on what happened versus what actually happened. So meaning if you hit the ball hard, it's not always going to be a home run. So what is the average of each of these? The Orioles are most definitely not getting unlucky, or not getting unlucky to the same degree that even Milwaukee and the Washington Nationals are. And they're 2 of the other worst bullpens out there. So this is just a tough one, and because it seems like Baltimore doesn't have a lot of guys that go, more than 4 or 5 innings. If they're lucky, the bullpens had to take on a really heavy workload compared to everybody else in the league. So this is just not a great situation for Baltimore, but it's fantastic for us going against them. Moving on here to our next game, we have Cincinnati at St. Louis. I wanted to see, that one I wrote down in my notes here that to look at the weather. Let's see, it says slight chance of rain. Again, this is a 215 game, so we're still several hours out. I haven't looked at the overall radar, but I'm not really excited by the pitching, but I am excited by the pitching for the hitters. So Dakota Hudson is going to take the bump here for the Cardinals, and he just does not have that many redeeming qualities. On the other side, you've got Tyler Mahle going, who is a relatively adequate pitcher. I think he's probably in our mix, potentially as an SP2 if you're willing to take on a little bit of risk. But the Redbirds have a 4.8 implied run total, and we've got their confirmed lineup, and it's essentially the best lineup they can put out there. Now, they only have a couple lefties in it. Matt Carpenter, of course, leading off, and then you got Colton Wong at the back end of the lineup. You got switch-hitting Dexter Fowler. But all of their righties are phenomenal against fellow righties. So Goldschmidt, absolutely elite. Paul DeJong, if you go look at his numbers since the beginning of last year, not that far off of Goldschmidt, which is crazy in and of itself. Marcell Ozuna trending up since he's got another year under his belt away from Marlins Park. You do have Jose Martinez batting 5th. Yadier Molina, who never seems to take a day off in the history of ever, are going. So we love all those guys. On the other side, we got the lefties we wanted. Now, they're not together. This is like a skip It's Votto at 1, Winker at 3, Dietrich at 5, and Schebler at 7. So that's kind of a little bit frustrating to me, because putting all 4 of those guys in your lineup is not, what you would say is optimal. But because we're running 150 lineups, it wouldn't shock me if I end up with a couple that have those 4 in my 4-man stacks. Now, I'm not going to hate it. It's just because who knows what's going to happen with baseball. Some of the guys are going to get out in between them, etc. Maybe your guy's on first, the next guy comes up isn't your guy, but he advances your guy to a scoring position. Then your guy comes up in the stack again, and he's got runners in scoring position. So it's not the end of the world, but it's not perfectly optimal. Variance is mega unpredictable here in baseball, so I'm okay with that. Go ahead and talk about the pitchers, and then any of the hitters you want to focus on in this game. I'm gonna kick my crunches off here, so you guys will probably hear the fan on my computer. So I'm gonna mute myself for a moment here.
Yeah. Okay, so two pitchers that really struggle against lefties. So it's hard. It's really tough not to like Votto and Dietrich. Like, even though Dietrich's not great, Barnhart, like. On the Red side, and then Carpenter, Fowler, Wong are the lefties. So like I could see Molly being okay. I could see both of these pitchers being okay, but I'm still not getting to these guys. I just haven't really found the need. There is a guy in these guys' price range that I like better. So I don't know. I don't find the need to get to these pitchers in tournaments, but I do like a lot of the hitters. So I think I'm more likely to stack the Cardinals against Molly. He's just a guy that gives up a ton of quality contact. And then, like you mentioned, on the Cardinals bats, they hit same-handed pitching really well. All these righties, DeJong and Goldschmidt, Azuna, Jose Martinez, Yachty just doesn't strike out. So I like how it sets up for the Cardinals here. I wish they had a couple more lefties, but they're just playing their best bats, which it's hard not to when those are your best bats to keep them out of the lineup, even against a guy that gets blasted by lefties. So yeah, it's just hitting for me here. Really going to like the Cardinals, and then I'll probably have some red stacks, but it's not going to be as much as the Cardinals, I don't think, here.
All right, so got the first one kicked off here. So from a broader question for those of you that are in the audience that are building the lineups or starting the crunches at this point, when you're looking at pitchers, how do you approach pitchers in your multi-entry? How I do it is I generally look at what we have for the projected popularity of where they're going to be in the large field tournaments, and then I decide if I want to go up or down from that. Hitters I usually just let fly. I'm generally running stacks 5-3 or 4-4, so I'll have generally 1 off on a slate like this. If it's a smaller slate, 5 games or less, a lot of times I'll run like a 4 or 5 man stack and then leave the other side open, or I might run 2-3 man stacks, just trying to get some of the better bats in. The reason I run the heavier lineups is if there's a bad pitcher and I want to attack them, I'll go that route. But when you're looking at pitchers today, like we have Price and Happ and Berrios and Strasburg, Derek Holland, who we'll get to in a phenomenal spot. Do you cap your pitchers? Do you let it run free? How do you do that? Because so right now, I've just to set the stage. So we've got this is DK Strasburg 43, Price 41, Happ 20, Berrios 30. I've set mine at, I really like Strasburg. I'm okay with Price in this one. So I've got those guys at 60. So I'm half again higher than the field. With Happ, I'm doubling the field because I like his matchup. With Berrios, I am coming in a little under the field. At 20%, and I've capped him to match the field, and then I'm getting some Derek Holland, whom I like, but no other pitchers are making it in. So I just have 6. I've got 5% Charlie Morton, so I've got 6 total pitchers. How do you do your pitchers on something like this 7-game slate?
Yeah, I cap them all. I cap every player individually based on a formula that I have, so I'm not overexposed, and it's just based on ownership. So if there's a 40% owned pitcher, I'll maybe the cap will be at 70, 75, 80. Whereas if there's a 1% owned pitcher that I kind of like, I don't want to be getting 50% of that pitcher, even if he grades out really well. I don't need that. It's a very variance-based sport, as we always say. So I might have that pitcher capped at 12% or 15%. So I'm not overextending myself to get too much leverage that I don't need, if that makes sense.
No, and that does. And one of the things to kind of continue along with why I do what I do is you want to be careful with your pitchers. And Jake's doing this the right way. I'm not into quite all of those formulas, and I'm slowly transitioning to getting my approach more automated. But for baseball, it's my favorite sport. This is been doing the fantasy baseball since 1989. Technically 1990 was my first year, spring of 1990. So been doing this for a long time. I love it. So I always feel like I want to be, having a little bit of control. But when you're letting your pitchers go uncapped, you can run a little bit of a risk in that not only, as Jake said, you're going way over the field when you don't need to, but if it keeps feeding in the really expensive guys, if you go look at what your stacks are, it's not the 2, 3, 4, 5 hitter. It's the 7, 8, 1 hitters. It's the guys that you may not be expecting. So you always need to go double check and say, because that extra $2,000 today that's going to Strasburg over somebody else is really going to impact the heart of the order stacks that I'm trying to get. So you want to see what the ramifications are. It's a balancing act. So even though you're hitting the button and you're seeing I got 20% of this stack, great. Go look and see what that stack is actually made up of amongst the hitters. Because if you're rolling a boatload of Colton Wong, may not be the way you want to go today.
Right, exactly. That's perfect. And you can manipulate that with the use of groups if you choose to do that. You can limit the number of, let's say, 8 and 9 hitters to 1 per lineup or something like that. So there's a ton of things to experiment with Fantasy Cruncher. And that's why you're not going to have time a lot of the times to look over your 150 lineups. Or however many lineups you make, you're not gonna be able to look over every single one of them and make adjustments and get perfect lineups, but you can get more optimal lineups by creating certain rules like that.
Yeah, and I did a ton of that with groups for basketball, and I do a ton for football on Fantasy Cruncher, and you can designate a group. So what you do is you do a game stack, you can choose a key player, which means if you're playing this player, then do X with whatever your group is. So you would pick the quarterback as the key player, and you'd say, I want 5 guys from this group, and then you got players from both sides or from both teams in there, and that's how you can easily automate your game stacks. Well, a little harder to do that for baseball. For basketball, what you can do is you can say, hey, I really want to spend and make sure I have Joel Embiid in my lineup. Well, if you're going to do that, maybe you want to make sure that you have at least one of Kawhi Leonard or Kyle Lowry. So you can put the 3 of those guys in the group, make Embiid the key player, and then say must play one of the other 2 guys, and they'll get them in there. So that's the way to do it. For hockey, you can set it by line, and that's the way to go. And then Josh just did a great YouTube show here with Fantasy Cruncher, who we've partnered with here, and they're having us do some beta testing on a lot of their stuff behind the scenes. They're giving us we are offering with any of our Osmo subscriptions, you can do the add-on to Fantasy Cruncher, and if you use the promo code Live Before Lock, you can get 50% off your first month. Now that's for the Osmo subscription. The Fantasy Cruncher is kind of the easiest way to say it. It's a pass-through cost for us, so they're giving it to us cheaper, so we kind of give it out, support it, build our content around it, do our shows around it, so they can quote get you hooked. So that's why it's coming at a bit of a discount through us. And that's an intentional thing that they're doing there, because they know it comes along with our projections and a bunch of other things. And once you get in there and are using Fantasy Cruncher, you're going to be hooked. And it's fun. Even when you're using it for Yahoo, where you can't upload the lineups, you can still build them. It takes the biases out. So you're realizing, oh gosh, it's better to play these $12 players instead of trying to play this $26 player and this $7 outfielder or catcher or whatever. It can show you some holes in lineup construction. Then you just type in the lineups really quick. So it's very versatile. You can do a lot of stuff with it. And this is the strategy show. So that's why we're talking through just some of this stuff, since we have a little bit more of a leisurely pace here this morning. Let's continue on to our next game here, Jake. It is the Oakland Athletics and the Toronto Blue Jays. We have Brett Anderson taking on Aaron Sanchez. 4.5 implied run total for both teams here. So not fired up about the pitching. Aaron Sanchez, at one point, we thought he was going to be the closer there for Toronto. He didn't really want to be in the bullpen, but they made him. And so he's bounced around back and forth. He's been dealing with injuries. He's a reasonably good pitcher. This is always a dangerous lineup here with Oakland. But I think Sanchez is going to be in the mix as an SP2 at 6,800 here on DraftKings. On the other side, you have Brett Anderson, who had been around forever, had his own issues with injuries. I'm not really as excited about him going against Toronto. We have Smoke, Grichuk, Vlad Guerrero Jr. I saw Dave in our premium Slack said, I wasn't even born in 1989. Hey, I'm now playing second generations and have been for a long time of players that were on some of my initial teams, and now they're on my secondary teams. And even then, some of those guys the second generation has already retired. So I've been doing this for a long time. But you've got we can't call him Vladdy Daddy. So Vladdy Jr., Teoscar Hernandez. Those are the guys I want to key in on. I was secretly hoping we'd get a little bit more of a bump there for Danny Jansen, but if you have to play a catcher at 3,100, him going in there with the platoon advantage, not a bad way to go. What are you seeing from this game at the macro level, Jake?
I don't necessarily love picking on Brett Anderson. He's kind of like, you would think he'd be kind of bad. I don't know that he's got great stuff, but kind of crafty, and he seems like he disappoints more often than when you're trying to stack against him. So I think people will be pumped up to play Vlad again. I don't think that the new toy has worn off of people. Like, he's going to be popular. We just got ownership, and I'm trying to do a quick control V where he's at. Let's see. Or control F, not control V. We only got him at 5%, really. That shocks me. I would think he's going to be chalkier than that. And I would think the Blue Jays are going to have some ownership against the lefty. All these right-handed bats in here. Grichuk, Guerrero, obviously, Teoscar. So, I don't know. I don't mind the Blue Jay stack. I just think it might go a little bit over-owned against Anderson. And then Sanchez, kind of the same thing. I think a better real-life pitcher, a bunch of righties in this lineup you would expect. For Oakland, they haven't released their lineup yet, but I'm expecting it to be Davis and Piscotty and Chapman, Semien leading off. So I'm not super crazy about this game outside of some one-offs against Anderson. I don't really love the stack against him.
All right. Yeah, secondary plays is more or less what it's feeling like. The one good thing is, with regards to this is the pricing is reasonable. Now I'm running, let's see, I've got my DK crunch here is done. Let's see what happened with Toronto. So I didn't cap anybody. I was just curious to see where they'd be coming out here. I've got Toronto in my fourth highest stack. Now I'm going to change this because Cleveland's coming in way too high, but Toronto's at 20%. I figure that's about where I'll get them. Are you going to come in more in the 10 or 15 range in this one, Jake, to reverse pivot off the field?
For who?
For Toronto.
Oh, let's see where I'm at right now. I don't have any main Toronto stacks right now. So it's going to be some 3-mans and some 2-mans probably.
Okay.
But yeah, it'll be very few Toronto bats, it's looking like.
Yep, which absolutely makes sense because they've got enough individual upside here that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, both pitchers adequate in this one. So maybe the whole team won't go off. Maybe they'll give up. Each pitcher will give up 2 home runs, maybe 3 if we get the bullpen involved. But if they come without runners on base, not really that massive upside that we're missing out on. Sort of like when you see a team that you're like, oh, I stacked them. Yeah, they scored 12 runs. They had 1 home run and 3 doubles and got 12 runs. Wait, and the pinch hitters got 2 home runs or two RBI, and the batter got an RBI or the pitcher got an RBI. What's going on here? So just weird stuff happens within it. So even if you get mad at yourself for stacking a team and or not stacking a team and they go off, go see who did it. Because even when you're I got it right, you'll be surprised at who sometimes is getting the good stuff, and that's where the one-offs come in. That's where the one-offs come in. And this feels like a more target-rich environment for that. Let's head over here to Tampa Bay and Boston. We have back to that. We have. Wait, where's the? Oh, it's a later game. Oh, is that a? Are we on the 4? Oh, there's only.
there's 7. They're including the. Is the Boston game out?
Oh, gotcha. No, I had not realized we'd moved on to the 4:00 games, and I had it on my sheet here as one of the last 4:00 games, but my filters have it coming up next. So just wanted to make sure there's no rain and unannounced or not unannounced postponement that I'm unaware of. For those of you tuning in, as Jake called out earlier, Detroit and the White Sox will not be playing their game today, but Boston and Tampa will. It looks like I don't know that pleasant is the word, but I guess if you're in Boston, 52 is not bad. Coming off an extended winter here. It should be no precipitation. It should be a little bit overcast, but not a bad day for baseball. So we've got Charlie Morton and David Price. Now, Morton going against Boston, I want no part of that. The Boston lineup is just too good. And even though their win totals and all that aren't where you would expect them to be for Boston, I don't want to tangle with Morton. On the other side, I'm okay with David Price. Maybe kind of as maybe a marginal SP1. If you're getting him as an SP2, you're going lighter on bats or doing something different. But I think he'll be one of my 4 or 5 key pitchers that I'm running on the 2-pitcher sites for sure. Tougher matchup than usual against Tampa Bay because they are much improved this year, but a lot of their good hitters are lefties, so they're not in the lineup today. But you've got Yandy Diaz, Tommy Pham, Daniel Robertson, Avisail Garcia, Mike Zunino. I mean, those aren't household names, but if you start looking at some of their raw numbers, they're definitely above average against Price. But Price is, he's a veteran, he's a gamer, he's been around forever. We were joking around on the Early Bird podcast with Stratford last night. And I said, he could give up 2 home runs in the first inning and you get mad and turn the game or go do something else. And then you get to the 7th inning and he's only allowed 4 total runs.
Right.
And he's still in there and he's gotten a strikeout per inning and all that. So you're getting, you should get close to 100 pitches from Price. And that's something that I think is some sort of safety within that. He's been around, pitched for everybody. Let's see, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Detroit, Boston. I'm missing a team. Anyway, he's been around forever.
Right?
What?
Was he in Toronto?
Yes.
At some point?
Yes, the Blue Jays. You are correct. But anyway, I'm good with him in this matchup. Where is he coming in your pitcher pool at this point on the 2-pitcher sites?
Yeah, before I factor in ownership, he grades out as a perfectly good raw point play. But he is the highest owned pitcher on the slate right now. And that's probably a lot to do with the price. Like these guys, Strasburg, Barrios, Happ are all projecting closely for people. So I'm kind of flipping that ownership that we're seeing. Pecking order. It's going Price, Strasburg, Barrios, and then Happ. I have Happ really close, and when I factor in ownership, like I don't think Price is 2.5 times more likely to outscore Happ here. So that's my only thing. He's a great raw point projecting play for me. Some of these guys in this order, Kiermaier, I believe he's in, right? I think we have an updated Tampa order. Let me check.
Yes, Kiermaier is batting 6th.
So like Kiermaier, Avisail Garcia, and then Arroyo and Adames, I have those guys paying 25+% each. Zunino, 40% guy versus lefties. So yeah, I mean the strikeout should be there. Like you mentioned, he doesn't need to be perfect for 9K here. So that's the appeal of the ownership. I just have other guys that are coming in a little bit ahead of him. So I'm going to be underweight on Price. I'm pretty comfortable with that. There are 3 other really solid options in my eyes.
All right. Looking to any of the Boston hitters. Now it's not, I don't want to take Morton, but it's not like he's a horrible pitcher by any stretch. I mean, since over his last 800 batters faced, he has a 29% strikeout rate. He's got a 49% ground ball rate. He's a little worse against lefties, but not really because he's still pretty good against lefties. Is there anything coming in for you that's popping at all for your key stacks here from Boston? And I'm looking at it, and I have them at 20% of my stack, so I'm still getting a decent amount.
Yeah,
but it's not going to break the model here.
I do actually like Boston quite a bit. I mean, they're underpriced, number one. I think Morton is a really good pitcher. But you can just see, if you look at what he's done so far this year, he has a couple walks in each of his starts so far. He's a guy, I mean, when he struggles and he's not finding the zone, and you're putting guys on against Benintendi and Betts and JD and all these really good hitters for Boston, you're going to be in trouble really quick. There's wind blowing out as well. It's already a good hitter's park in Fenway. I just think it's a really, really tough spot for Morton. So I like the full stack. I don't love like picking and choosing one or two hitters against him, just because if Morton's on, he's got the kind of guy that can just miss bats, for the entire game. But yeah, I'm either stacking it or kind of staying away from this one. It's looking like, unless there's like a Betts or JD one-off, then those guys always come up for you. I'm sure they do for you because they always project out well. And especially for these prices, it's just kind of way too low for how good of hitters they are, even though it's not a perfect matchup for them.
Yep, definitely agreed. Let's go on to our next game here. We got San Diego and Washington. We have Steven Strasburg getting to face a very righty-heavy San Diego Padres lineup. I say that without even knowing what their lineup is, because basically Eric Hosmer and then Greg Garcia off the bench are their only lefties on their whole roster. It's an interesting way to build this out. Now, those guys do have some pretty good power against righties, but Strasburg is, I don't know, I want to say splits neutral, but he's been great since the beginning of last season. He has just shy of one home run per nine against both righties and lefties. His strikeout rate is in the mid to upper 20s, depending on the data cut that you want to pick. He's been great there, and as long as he doesn't get in his own head, he should do just fine in this matchup. It's not hot, so we don't have to worry about the sweat dripping off him like it seems like the old Patrick Ewing style. But if you ever watch Strasburg, I mean, literally it's sweat dripping off his hands. It's like he gets to throw a spitter without having to worry about that, Jake. It's pretty crazy. But when he loses his control or is not gets behind in the count, he starts throwing fastballs. And the league finally figured that out the last couple years, and he does a pretty good job of not just defaulting into that. But that's the one risk, because when it goes sideways for him, it goes sideways in a hurry. He gets down on himself, and all of a sudden he's got bases loaded, and it's a mess. I like him in this matchup. He's going to be one of my top three pitchers today, maybe top four. We've already mentioned Price, Barrios. Hap's going to be in there, and then Holland for me. That'll be kind of my five guys. So I'm going to have a lot of him here. I'm going to come in above the field, and I don't always do that for Strasburg, but I think everything's lining up to be a nice situation for him. So let's start off there with Strasburg. Is that we don't have the official lineup yet for San Diego, but again, they do have, Tatis 250 isolated power, Will Myers 170, Machado 220, Franmil Reyes 240. So those are some pretty hefty numbers, but then it drops off from there, and with Marco and Kinsler and pitcher. So I like this one for Strasburg. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm just impressed with Strasburg so far this season. Missing bats as well as anyone, 14% swinging strike rate, almost 37.7% chase rate. Those numbers are up from last year. He was a guy that I didn't really love playing because he wasn't missing the bats at the rate where, like, compared to some of the other pitchers you were paying for in his range. But now priced at 10.5, getting a decent amount of righties and a lot of strikeout upside, pitcher spot included here, of course. Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with him. He's the one that I don't mind going overweight on, and he's grading out really well, even when I factor in ownership. Just that good of a play, I think, today.
All right. And in the chat here. Let's see. GAB's asking, how the hell does Strasburg have his hands sweat? Well, it's not just his hands, it's everything. And it's running down his arms and it's getting on his hands. And especially when it's really humid, because that's one of the sneaky things here about DC. We're not like in the South, but it gets humid as hell. Not Atlanta or South Carolina or Florida humid, but it gets, when I first moved out here, Jake, I had to have a towel to dry off with after I was done drying off. Because you felt like you never got dry. I finally kind of got used to it. I was telling my wife, I'm like, yeah, my first 2 years here, I used 2 towels every morning because I just never felt like I was getting dry. But it just, and a lot of times he'll have they're dry fit, but he'll have the longer sleeves on, even in this weather, because he needs it to absorb all the moisture and try to wick it away, because his hands get real slippery. It's dripping down his eyes, his face. It's a mess. And it's not just him. I'm at the game sitting there dying myself if you're outside, because it's not fun. I can't even imagine having to actually do any physical exertion there. But that's what it is. It's not that it's hand sweat. It's just that it's dripping off him dramatically of sorts. So that brutal. Messes with his control, and it's a bit much. And a lot of people, it does that with a lot of guys. That's why you always see them drying their hands, going to the resin bag, all that stuff. But with him, it's awful. So just keep that in mind, because that's sometimes things that catch people off guard once it gets hot, or he's down in Miami and they mess with him and open the roof, stuff like that, which they did do one time. I don't know if that was because of him, but it was a hot Saturday afternoon game and they opened the roof.
They should do that everywhere. Use your park to your advantage, right?
Absolutely. You've heard the myths about the Twins at the Metrodomes, where they'd turn on the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system when the opposing team was up, and have it blowing in from the outfield up there?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't shock me. I don't know.
Yeah, you just think about it. Just ask around. I'm sure your folks remember.
That sounds against the rules. But if you're just going to open the roof the whole game because the pitcher struggles in humid weather, why wouldn't you do that? I don't know.
Fan comfort, but who cares? Let's see. Coming back on the other side, talk to me about Eric Lauer here. Now, he's someone that'll be in the mix as an SP2, and I'm kind of getting what I want, but I haven't gone through and dug in to see what's coming up with my stacks. He should have a tough lineup here. We'll have to see who is in for the Nationals. The key is Rendon and Zimmerman, and we'll see if Gomes is in. If Gomes isn't in, that's fine. Kurt Suzuki's pretty good against lefties, but Zimmerman's kind of the key on this one. Day game after a night game, even though this is a 4:00 game. I'm guessing if Zimmerman doesn't play today, he'll for sure be in the lineup today. Tomorrow, if he plays today, I wouldn't expect him in the lineup tomorrow. But how are you feeling about Eric Lauer as an SP2 for his current price?
I got a couple shares of Lauer. I think those might get filtered out. It's just the Nats are a really tough lineup. They lose Harper, but against lefties, they're still going to be a really, really tough team to want to attack, especially a lefty that doesn't really miss a lot of bats like Lauer. So I'm much more on the National side. I'm much more on the hitters here. Zimmerman at 4K. His price just forever stays low versus lefties for almost no reason. Yan Gomes can hit lefties really well. Soto can hit anyone. And Robles getting the lineup bump from a couple days ago, batting second. So yeah, I just think it sets up really nicely for a Nats stack.
We did get that lineup. Thank you. Sorry, I hadn't hit refresh there.
Yeah, I think we just got it now.
Okay.
So yeah, it seems like a really, really nice spot for the Nats, and I don't think I need to get too cute and play Lauer at 7K.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the perfect Nats lineup.
Yep.
With the exception of Rendon not playing and Kendrick being in there. But Victor Robles had 2 stolen bases last night. Gomes had a home run. Dozier has a long and storied career going against Southpaws. I like that. And then the guy batting ninth, Carter Kieboom here, he is the rookie that they just called up from the minors. I think he's I read a little quote from him. He's like, 3 years ago, I was working on high school art projects. Last night, I made my first start in the major leagues. How wild is that? Was his quote. So he's, I believe, Spencer Kieboom's brother. So That is, he's top fringe top 100 prospect coming into this season, depending if you're looking at Baseball Prospectus or Keith Law or whomever your favorite prospect hounds are. But he is one of the better bats coming up from the national system. And remember that they just brought up Soto, they brought up Robles, etc. So he's kind of that next guy in line. So it'll be interesting to see what happens from him. But yeah, this is a outside of Rendon not being in the lineup is pretty damn good.
Yep. Yeah. I mean that's the one hole is Rendon. So and that would make this lineup like the nut lineup if they could somehow squeeze Rendon in there. But Kendrick can hit lefties fine. I'm assuming that's who's filling in for him.
Yeah, he's batting third. So 4,300 on DK, but he does get you second or third base eligibility. So that can be quite useful in your stacks because the other three leadoff guys, I'd pass on Eaton. I don't like him against lefties, but Soto is in his career, which started last year, he's a 400, 200 guy with WOBA and ISO against fellow lefties. So he's the main reason they were able to just say, yeah, Bryce Harper, well, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Let's see. Anything else from this one here?
I mean, if you're targeting against Strasburg, like he's the kind of guy that will give up power, like you mentioned. I still don't love the stack, but if you're going to a guy, it's probably Machado at 3,600 or Myers for 4K. So if you want to get some leverage there, I don't think you need to stack against him, but those would be the two guys I'd be looking at.
All right, shout out to Thomas Tyner. He says, I'm fixing to buy an RV to live in. That way I can get out of Georgia in the summer. I just can't take it anymore.
I don't blame you. I can't imagine. It gets humid here, and I can't stand it, but I can't imagine what it's like elsewhere.
Yeah, and because I grew up out in state of Washington, so I grew up in the eastern side, which is like arid. It's high desert, so it gets hot, but it's dry heat. 2 feet of snow in the winter, 100 degrees in the summer. But there's no humidity in Seattle. Even though it's humid, it never really gets above 70 degrees. So it's usually misting in the default Seattle weather is misting, overcast, and 52 degrees, whether it's May or April or November, December. But it's not the hot and humid. It's just kind of wet. Man, when you get once I felt what the true humidity was, that was just pretty crazy. What do we got here? Let's head on to our next game. Oh yeah, reminder for those of you that want to pop on in to the Fred Van Elite contest. What we're asking is if you sign up for the Osmo DraftKings group, which I'll drop the link to my tweet, and this is my pinned tweet today. Once you're in that, you can join the Fred Van Vliet contest. I will be the only one required to play Van Vliet, but the reason we're doing this is we want to get more people in the Osmo group so we can start running some regular contests here with added bonus prizes. Because on DK, if you run anything larger than a 20-man, it doesn't run unless it's filled. So we want to be able to regularly run the 50s, the 40s and 50s for now, but I suspect by basketball next season or by football, we're going to run 100-mans real easy. We start running the 100-mans with this, then the prizes will be a little bit better. And this is, this is just for fun. But today, if the winner of this league gets a rest of the season premium basketball package through the finals, it's just $1 to get in. It's the same normal DK payout and all of that, except you got me playing Fred Van Vliet, trying to help you get a little bit of your rake taken care of for. So I don't expect the cash. But the last one of these that we did, I did get third. Jake, I did get third. Only 2 people played Fred Van Vliet besides me. He didn't even have a good game, suckers. But when you have your good luck talisman like that, sometimes it works out. More often than not, I'll be in the bottom. But I just dropped that link in there. So all you gotta do is just click on the DK groups. We control it, so we're not going to be pumping up. Join my group, because we'll just boot out the people that do that. But we're gonna do that. But for those of you that are already Osmo members, if you got your Osmo avatar and you win, I'll make sure you get a T-shirt since you already have the subscription. So there you go. Fun for everybody there. Fun for everybody.
Very nice.
All right. What do we got here coming up next? Well, let's just let's get all of our good pitchers out of the way here. let's get all of the pitchers that we're going to be using today out of the way here. I don't know if we want to say good, but you got Derek Holland, you've got J.A. Happ, couple southpaws going against each other. 7 implied run total in this one. Stratford was pointing out that last night with Paxton and Bumgarner, it was actually a 6 implied run total. I don't think we'd seen one of those this year. I remember a couple 6.5s, but that was pretty low. But these guys, Happ's been struggling just a little bit, but, huge ballpark boost for him. Gets to go against a lineup that is far, far from intimidating. Only guys he's really going to have to worry about would be Longoria. Let's suppose he's not in that category anymore. I guess Tyler Austin with the little, hey, remember me? I used to be a Yankee at one point, left or righty-lefty matchup, but that's it. None of these other guys scare me. Are they pesky? Yeah. Do they strike out a ton? Well, half of them do. The other half don't. But, this makes Happ a fine pitcher I'm willing to take a chance on. Holland on the other side is by far, I think, the best SP2. We're not going to be alone in our determination on that. And as long as he can negotiate the first couple hitters here with Gleyber Torres, Gary Sanchez, Luke Voigt, DJ LeMahieu, he's going to be just fine. Shout out, hat tip, Cameron Maybin. Remember Cameron Maybin? He's been around forever. He's now with the Yankees, so he is going to be playing there because they've lost a whole starting lineup is on their injured list. What do you want to do with these pitchers here? Or let me rephrase that. How are those guys coming out on your DK percentages?
Yeah, I mean, I like both of these guys quite a bit. It's just a great, great, great park to pitch in. Holland, like you'll see all these righties, and maybe some people will go to the Yankees. It's looking like Torres and Sanchez and even LeMahieu are getting a little bit of ownership. My favorite guy against Holland is probably Voigt, looking at his ownership. And just he's a really good hitter against lefties. I think he hit a dong maybe yesterday or the day before, but
yes.
I really like Holland here. He's better against righties. At least that's how I have him. Or I'm sorry, he's not better against righties. I'm thinking of someone else, but he's perfectly fine against righties from how I have him graded out. And there are a bunch of strikeouts. He's got a 12.3% swinging strike rate this season. And I'll almost take anyone in this park. And it's a watered down Yankees lineup still, even though they got back Sanchez. It's still not great. 3.8 implied total against just kind of drives that home for me. And then Happ, I just think he's underowned against the Giants. I've really got no issues with Happ either. So he's going to be right up there with like the Strasburgs and Berrioses with me, or for me. Same thing. Price, I've got him really close to price as far as projection, but the ownership difference makes me like Happ a little bit more.
All right, I'm just putting together my Yahoo stuff, so we'll talk about that. Now that Yahoo runs the full slate, every time they do a lock, they run rest of the slate games. So their 4 p.m. or their 2 p.m. game is going to include everybody through the end. Their 4 o'clock games will include everybody through the end. 7 o'clock, everybody through the end. And they generally run contests with every start time. So the fun thing about that is even though the contest may not be giant, they don't always fill. And you're also getting players that are not used to Yahoo, which has very unique pricing. You're not just going to lift your player pool and move it over and go 1 for 1. If you're playing FanDuel or DraftKings or Fantasy Draft, which is great because here you're getting some exposure to different guys. There's always some hidden gems in the $7, $8, $9 range. You need to learn how to handle their unique pitching pricing. It's a lot of fun there. Stacking, while you can stack up to 6, it's very tricky to do because they don't have any utility spots. There's no multi-position eligibility. And, so anytime you're getting your guys that are 2 first basemen or whatever it might be for the DH, you're going to have to make some choices. The other nice thing about it is it's not always the obvious guys that you want to get in the stack. Like if you're trying to stack Boston, you're not going to have good pitching. So it's a lot of fun over there. It's a 10 entry max, and they only run their management fee is just 12.5%. So that's significantly less than all of the other sites. And they also have, from time to time, they'll run those free management fee free contests, meaning that whatever they're taking in, that's what they're paying back out up to the guaranteed amount, and they don't take anything for running those contests. So check it out over there. If you have not yet signed up, use the promo code AWESEMO and get $30 deposit match up to your first $30. That's available in Yahoo Sports Rewards points, which are available for immediate use. And I'm going to drop a Yahoo link here in the chat in just a second. And if you come in on that, that helps us a lot because we get a little something for the effort on the referrals here. Let me see. Anything else from this one here?
I think we're good to move on. Well, we got one more in the early.
Yes, we should. Let me get this in here. There it is. So that's the little link. The promo code that helps you doesn't help us for referrals. So if you come in on that link, it's much appreciated. All right, getting back over here, re-updating the crunches for the recently released lineups, and then Cleveland, Houston. So this one here, Brad Peacock, adequate pitcher, not awesome, not horrible, a little worse against lefties, actually has quite a problem with lefty power. This is a new Cleveland lineup. I say it's new because everybody's healthy now of their remaining guys, and they're messing with Brad today because they've got Lindor, Martin, Ramirez, Santana, Gonzalez, Kipnis, Bowers, and Tyler Naquin all hitting from the left side of the plate. The lone holdout, Kevin Pawlicki. And we're not going to worry about Kevin Pawlicki. But he will probably see some pitches as the only righty in the lineup because Peacock's going to go just through an endless gauntlet of lefties here. I don't like that at all for Peacock. That's, well played, Cleveland. Well played. If we're looking to anybody, for me, it's the top four here on Cleveland. I'm just not a fan of Carlos Gonzalez anymore. He is definitely on the down slope of his career. At some point, he'll get hurt. He's really only good against righties anymore. If you're going to play him, I guess you might as well play him now. But for me, it's going to be the first four guys here. I also don't hate the other guys coming in, Jake, as a little bit of some filler stacks here, because you get Kipnis, he's going to take care of your second base spot. Bowers, depending on the site you're playing on, he's first or outfield. So you get a nice little pairing of those guys at somewhat of a discount. I don't hate that. Talk to me about Peacock and Cleveland.
Yeah, assuming the Indians roll out this lineup that we're looking at, just chock full of lefties, which is what they should do if they're trying to win. It's just a really, really tough spot for Peacock. So he's a guy I love when there's 3 or 4 or 5 righties in the lineup. If there's going to be 8 lefties and a bunch of them that are really good, it's tough for me to get behind Peacock. So it's going to be lineup dependent. If for some reason they roll out a garbage lineup with 5 righties, then I would be looking to play a bunch of Peacock. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see 7, 8 lefties, and that makes the Indians one of my favorite stacks on the entire slate. So if it's this lineup, the Indians probably going to be my highest owned or second highest owned stack on the early slate. And yeah, it's just really, really tough for Peacock. I mean, he's striking out 12% of lefties this year. Short sample, but for his career, he's got huge splits between righties and lefties. Like, he's a guy I will almost never intentionally take righties against outside of a stack. But lefties, I will be jamming them into my lineups type of thing.
All right. On the other side, you got Houston going against the Biebs. That would be Shane Bieber. He's an okay pitcher. I think if he was named something besides Bieber, we'd be able to take some of our biases out. I mean, I was actually so glad that Justin Bieber finally got his haircut, because now he went from looking like a true homeless dirtbag to just a dirtbag. So there you go. I'm throwing shade, Jake. Throwing shade. He bothers me. I don't know why. But hey, congrats on him for becoming a YouTube sensation and lining his pockets. So good on him. The one issue with Bieber is he is not good against lefties. Last 300 faced, Jake, a 380 WOBA, 225 ISO. Strikes him out 24%. Doesn't walk them, but that means the ball's going in play. So we've got the guys that I would like to look towards. Start with Brantley. Now, the rest of the lineup here, the projected lineup anyway, doesn't have a lot of lefties in it. We're looking at Reddick and Brantley, basically. Bregman is just absolutely elite. Altuve, of course, pretty solid. Shockingly amongst the AL League leaders in home runs, but good for him. And then Springer is good, but I wish there was some more lefties coming back in this lineup. What do you want to do here against the Beebs?
I mean, it's tough because this one's also going to depend on ownership. And right now, it looks like Houston's going kind of under-owned. I know Bieber's good against right-handed bats, and he's not as good against lefties. Similar to Peacock, maybe not as pronounced splits so far this season, but there's just a lot of really, really good hitters for Houston. And if they're going to be, if Altuve is going to be the only one that's getting real ownership on a 7-game slate, then yeah, I absolutely love Brantley here. I like Reddick, and then you jam in Springer, Altuve, Correa, Uriel around them. I dig the Houston stack. So bats all over the place for me in this game. And we were asked if we could do home run picks for fun for the early slate. Do you want to do that quick?
Sure.
Okay, I'll stick in this game. I'll go Brantley. I really like Brantley here.
I think that's a nice one. What do I want to do here? I'm gonna go with Kepler.
Okay, I like that a lot.
They're my number one stack right now. Wrote them up in the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article. You can check that out on the Awesemo homepage. But putting some numbers behind this, Jake, on DraftKings, running my 4-4s. I'm going to have 35% of the Minnesota fighting Jakes. I'm getting 20% Cleveland. I'm going to have to see who that is. I'm getting 20%, and this is where I have my caps. So I'm going to get 20% of San Francisco. I want to see who that is. If it's some discounted players, I'm fine with that. Or if it's filling in what I need, I'm good with that. I've got a fair amount of J.A. Happ, so I don't mind that as a bit of a hedge against what I'm doing. Where is Happ? I've got 40% Happ, 32% Holland, 60% Strauss, 50% Price, 13% Berrios. I'm going to tweak those around a little bit, but running it kind of relatively, letting it go free a little bit here just to see where it's popping up. That's fine. And then I've got 5% Morton, 5% Peacock, 2% Sanchez. If we look over here on running the 4-4 stacks in the early slate of FanDuel, I am getting and I cap these guys at 15% each, which means I'm running 2 of them, so double it up. But I'm getting Minnesota, Cleveland, Cincy, Oakland, and Houston are all hitting those caps. Toronto is next at 24, and then nobody else is in double digits. So it looks like I'm going to be focusing there on those 5 teams as my core. The pitching coming in on the 100 lineups I ran with my projections here. I've got 40, and I set everybody with the 50% cap just to see what would happen. So I got Strasburg at 46. That's double the field. I got Happ at 24. That's double the field. I got Price at 16. That's a third less than what the field has. And I got Berrios at 10, which is half of what we've got the field at. So just for some perspective there. And then running the Yahoo ones, again, they go the all-day slate. So I capped the pitchers at 40 because I wanted to see what would happen. But Noah Syndergaard is number 1 at 40, tied with Strasburg. And David Price is at 18%, Berrios at 19%. And then Happ's the other guy. He and Strasburg and Syndergaard are the top 4. So there's one little strategy. If you want to think about it, on Yahoo, when they're doing these all-day slates, people prefer to play the guys that are going or for sure in the lineup. So even though it's the pitcher, people are still going to lean towards Strasburg. So from a leveraging standpoint, going against Syndergaard, going with Syndergaard, not exactly the worst thing in the world for
Sure.
going Strasburg on a lineup or 2. There's no guarantee Strasburg's going to be great, but if he melts down, which, it's not hot enough for him to melt today, but he still could have a bad outing, then Syndergaard could be the next guy in line, and people aren't going to really be looking at him if they haven't done their full slate analysis just yet. Are we ready to head on to the afternoon slate here? Or probably
I think so.
The main slate. Oh, let's hit that 6 o'clock game real quick. That is going to be the Trevor Richards and Jake Arrieta squaring off. This one's in Philly. There's a little bit of weather there last night, but looking solid today. Going to be 60 at first pitch. Got a little bit of a crosswind going from third base to first base in 9 to 12 miles an hour, but no precipitation today. I don't really want to play either of these guys. I don't really want to tangle with the Phillies. If this one was in Miami, I might consider Trevor Richards because he's an adequate pitcher. It sounds like we're going to get Jean Segura back in the lineup again. He was on the DL there for a little bit, but tough lineup there for Philly. On the other side, Jake Arrieta, I guess, would be the way you want to go here. I mean, does anybody scare you amongst the names? Curtis Granderson, Martin Prado, Neil Walker, Miguel Rojas, Sterling Castro, Brian Anderson, Chad Wallach. Who the hell's Chad Wallach?
I don't know. That is a great question.
Create a player, as Ben Rossa likes to say. So.
Yeah, I haven't looked at this game, but I'll take basically anyone against the Marlins. You saw Eichhoff have big success. I am not an Arrieta guy at all, but it looks like a fair price for him. He just doesn't miss the bats at a great rate, but he does go deep into the games. 108, 105, 99 pitches, 7, 8, 9 innings his last 3 starts, and then 7 the start before that, actually. The Marlins will make you look great, and all these righties at the bottom of the order, I think Arrieta could get some strikeouts. You always expect the opposing pitcher to get the win as well against Miami. So it's just like I don't like the play. I'm glad he's not on the main slate on DK.
Yeah.
Because I think he would be chalky, and then I'd have to make that decision. But yeah, for whatever slates is included, I think he's a fine option at 8,200. What was his price on around other sites?
That's always a great question. Buying myself time by talking slowly and finding a slate where he is on, getting to the all-day slate. We've got Arrieta is 97 on FanDuel. That is not cheap. And the one thing on the all-day slates on Yahoo or FanDuel, basically it's only for ticket contests. I have no idea why they. Wow. DK, I am playing the all-day slate. He is 8,200, so he will probably be in some of my lineups there. Currently, I'm going to run about 50 lineups on that. I would suspect I'll probably have 20% Arrieta as a bit of a pivot because he's sort of in the sweet spot there in that not everybody's going to be fired up to take him because he's really not on any slate. He's got the discount from the 5 guys, or he's got a better offense behind him or a discount compared to the 5 guys we were kind of leaning on in this main slate. Or this first main slate. When we get to the night slate, we'll talk about some of the pitchers there, but not a lot of awesome options there. So I think he's a guy on the DK all day slates that you want to make sure you have in a couple of your lineups, or a percentage at least. And I would set that percentage at 20 or 25.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to upload the main slate popularity percentages here, but let me get you started off on a game for us, Jake. We've got Milwaukee. We've got a 7-10 start here. It's Milwaukee in New York against the Mets, facing Noah Syndergaard here. You have Brandon Woodruff, who is a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma, or whatever. I think that was Winston Churchill's quote. Whatever he said. Talk to me here about Brandon Woodruff, because it's 7,700 going against an improved Mets team. He's still a potential SP2 now that we've lost our Chicago-Detroit game due to postponement.
Yeah, he's a guy that I looked at last night, and I basically said I was going to do whatever the ownership is not doing. So if he's going to be chalky.
We have him at 21% on DK right now.
Oh, up to 21? Did we just get an update?
I think it was like 45 minutes ago.
So, okay.
Since we've been on air, we have had one. I'm just getting that.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'm gonna load that in. I think that's probably a fair ownership for him. I don't have the Mets being that tough of a matchup. I just don't really love playing Woodruff. I mean, there are going to be a bunch of lefties in this lineup. You would expect Conforto and McNeil and Nimmo, who's a guy I like quite a bit. So I think at 20% plus, I'm probably more on the Mets bats. I haven't run crunches just yet, but I would suspect I do get a good amount of Mets bats looking at their ownerships on the other side.
Yeah, and just not to spoil the leisure, but as I'm setting just some preliminary caps here in the 20 to 40% range, depending on the pitcher. Some I'll throw in there at 5 because lineups. But the late slate here, we're going to talk about Noah Syndergaard in this game, Clayton Kershaw, who is not the Clayton Kershaw, but he's not priced like he is the Clayton Kershaw. But that's going to be a no for me, dog. A little pitchy. So I'm looking at the Mikes, Mike Minor and Mike Leake, Brandon Woodruff. Yeah, this is going to be an intriguing late slate because there's not a lot of reinforcements coming down the hill. I want to come in under Syndergaard, like well under if possible, going against the Mets here, but I don't know who else I'm landing the pitching ownership on, which means I'm going to be having all the big 4-man stacks I want today because I'm just going to not punt. I'm just not going to care about pitching. So I think the way this slate is shaping up is I'm going to focus in on the hitters I want and the premium stacks that I want, and then just mix and match with whatever pitchers I end up with. Probably the bulk of them in the 20 to 25% range, which means I'll be coming in a third less to half less of the popular ones, but I'll be coming in a third or half more than the less popular ones, and I'm just going to hope variance lands on my side with a lineup or two that can break free and head on up the leaderboard there. But Syndergaard here, we got to give him some doing proper since he is probably the best pitcher at this point on the slate, even though he's been dealing with his injuries, but we certainly don't have the same Clayton Kershaw here. Talk to me a bit about one Noah Syndergaard.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Syndergaard, and I think Adam brought this up on one of the shows, maybe last time he pitched, is like, when's the last time Syndergaard wrecked a slate where you've had to have him? And the reason that is, and it's not often, it certainly hasn't been this year. It's 22 points is max. And that's not great analysis, just looking at the points, but like, he's always heavily owned. It's always seemingly underpriced. And this is a really tough matchup against the Brewers. Like, you get to go up against Grandal, Yelich, of course, Shaw, Thames. Like, there's a lot of landmines, I like to call it, in this lineup for Syndergaard. And at nearly 50%, I just don't see the need to get anywhere close to that. So I'm going to come in underweight. I can already tell on Syndergaard just based on how he's projecting for me. And he's a fine play. But when you factor in ownership, I think there are a bunch of plays that are much, much better than him, honestly.
All right, I'm kicking off a few crunches here because I want to see where everybody's going to land. Let's see if focusing on the pitcher or the hitters, you mentioned kind of those lefties going against Woodruff. Anybody, you want to go for the double leverage? Not only are you going to play less of Syndergaard than the field, but you want to hit on any of the Brew Crew here that pops out for you potentially.
So it's a really good stolen base spot for Lorenzo Cain, and stolen bases do generally go overlooked. Has he been aggressive? I guess I haven't really paid attention to this, but I want to see quick where has he been stealing bases? Yeah, I mean, he's got 3 this season, so at least he's willing to steal. And then I don't know off the top of my head if Yelich has been stealing. Yep, Yelich, 2 stolen bases in his last game.
2 last night. So he's got 13 home runs and 5 steals right now.
So he's getting primed up for this matchup. If he gets on, I would imagine he's going. That's the book's kind of out on Syndergaard. I don't know that he's made any huge improvements. So those top 2, if you can get them on against Syndergaard, that's huge for a stack. Of course, not only are you getting stolen bases, but that also allows, or you get earned runs against the chalkiest pitcher on the slate. So yeah, I'm all over this Brewers stack, and it looks like it's not going to take too much to get over the field on them.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot. An excellent call. It's funny that last night, I was reading the box scores this morning from last night and saw Yelich. I have him on a couple of my season-long teams, and I didn't even put 2 and 2 together and say, he had a couple stolen bases last night. That's in play. Maybe he'll get 3 tonight if he has the opportunity. And against Syndergaard, because the Mets are just institutionally bad, but I think I've almost become numb to it at this point, Jake.
Yeah.
Which is not exactly what we want to be saying here. Let's see. We do have the popularity, ownership percentages, as you guys like to call them, for Yahoo main slate. So I'm going to get those in here and see what we've got coming in. But it looks like Syndergaard, Kershaw are going to be the guys that get a lot of pitching interest. Minor will be up there, but we'll run a crunch here for that. And the one thing I do when I'm doing my crunches here on Yahoo, I generally run 4 threes, because the pricing is so unique to anything else that we've seen. I feel like trying to cram in 4 fours or 5 threes is too constricting, and I want the optimizer to have the opportunity to get in some of those good bats and throw them in with some of the stacks I have, and not try to force in, a 4-man Boston stack or a 4-man, fill in the blank Colorado or Rockies in Colorado. And hurt myself in other spots. So that's just something I like to do there. And then that's where I run. I know that you and Jake and Adam, or you and Josh and Adam and of course Alex and Tom and Eddie, 1-800 Eddie, not Fast Eddie, he can't play, but 1-800 Eddie, you guys all run a lot more lineups than you're going to enter, but then you start sorting your lineups within what comes out, and that's what allows you, because you can't run, if you're doing crunches, you can't run some 5-3, some 4-4, some whatever without doing some elaborate work in groups, and that's just a pain in the ass and no reason to do that. You can't do that without running separate crunches, but you guys bring them all back out into Excel, sort them, and then upload the ones you want. I do that for Yahoo. I run a few different things, and then I pick out the 5 or 10 lineups that I want to put into the contest. So on a smaller scale, I like to do that, but I know that that's something that Alex has been preaching his whole time, is build more lineups than you need, and then get rid of the ones that you don't like. There's no reason to have them in there. So just additional food for thought here. Heading on to our next game here. Kick off this third and final crunch. We've got the third and final crunch for Yahoo, that is. We've got Jaime Barria going against Jorge Lopez here in Kansas City. 62 degrees. We've got brisk. Is that the right word? 15 to 17 mile an hour winds, cross winds, but they're kind of coming in from left field towards first base. That does not necessarily bode well for the righties in the lineup, but it's the lefties that we want going against this pair of righties. Talk to me here about either pitcher here, because every pitcher is in play on our 6-game main slate.
Yeah, I guess just by process of elimination, these guys are going to be in play. I'm not finding myself being crazy about either one of them. I'm sure I'm going to have shares of Lopez, just because this Angels lineup is always bad. I just end up with pitchers against them. It is a 4.7 implied total against them, so it's not a perfect play getting to Jorge Lopez. But even when I project him for 5 1/3 or 5 2/3, like, he's going to come out as a decent value for 6,600. And then it's just like, who else are you worried about outside of Trout? Maybe Justin Bour, assuming he's in the lineup. It's not pretty, but that's where I'm going to end up, and it's probably going to be Lopez. On the other side, I have Barria actually being worse against righties. I don't know. Do you have that?
Yeah, okay. It's still hard to tell, but
it's early for him.
Yeah. It's dramatic that righties are just hammering him. But even when you watch I watch the games, and particularly with him, because I have more time at night, and he plays the Mariners a lot, and I just get more time to watch the West Coast games on the weekend, so I've caught several of his starts. When you're watching righties go against him, it doesn't feel like they have the advantage. Sometimes when you see certain handedness going against said pitcher, it's like, yeah, these guys, it looks good. Not that the eye test does anything, nor should it carry any weight, but it doesn't look like they have an advantage. And then at the end of the game, you're like, holy hell, it's the righties that did all the work today. How did that happen? So it's an oddity, but it's not. I'm not ready to stake my marker on it yet, like we were for a long time with Jake Odorizzi, even though he's flipped because he's changed his pitch mix. Chase Anderson's another guy that is like this. Marco Gonzalez and Eduardo Rodriguez have it for lefty-lefty matchups where they're a little bit worse. Things can change so much with pitch mix and stuff like that. With the guy that doesn't have quite the runway that Barria does, I'm not gonna let that really influence what I'm doing. It's a nice bonus if it's a righty heavy team, but you still need to have your righty bats be good against other righties to have to have it work out. So that is an intriguing one. This time next year, if it's still all red when he's facing righties, I think we can start to say, there could be something to this. I'm just not ready to go there right now.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know. Bats aren't super interesting to me here. I think I'm okay. I'm always okay with like O'Hearn when he's 3,700. As far as stacks go, I don't know that I'm going to get to a bunch of either one of these teams, honestly. It's going to be Trout. It's going to be Mondesi, Merrifield, and probably O'Hearn.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. Coming in on the stacks here before we head on to the other games. This is Yahoo. I just set all the pitchers at 60%. Again, I'm running 4 threes here because I want to get some one-offs both at the high end and low end that fit in nicely with my guys. I'm getting Syndergaard maxed. He capped at 60%. I got Clayton Kershaw 40%. Michael Fultonevich, kind of an interesting one. I was surprised to see he's at 31%. I'm getting a fair amount of Woodruff. A lot of that has to do with his price. I'm getting him on DK as well. You got to play 2 pitchers. He's coming in at 50%, but he's 34 on Yahoo. So, putting that in perspective, Syndergaard is 45, Kershaw 50, Fulte 46, Yu Darvish 32, Minor 39. So it's interesting to see how that comes out a little bit differently over there as compared to the other 2 pitcher site here that I've run in DraftKings. On DK, I capped everybody at 40% on of the quote good pitchers just to see where they'd come out, or the popular pitchers, I should say. So I'm hitting the cap on Syndergaard. It got a lot of Woodruff here again, so we're going to want to look at that. But at 7,700, we're playing the Mets, but we might have to play some Woodruff here in our mixing and matching, and then everybody else is around 20%. I got no Jorge Lopez, 2% Mike Minor, so that I'm going to manually influence higher, and I've got 9% Mike Leake. I'm also going to manually influence that one higher. Sure. But just looking at where it's coming out, I wanted to call that out. And then the DK stacks, I capped everybody at 20 just for the time being, and I've got 7 teams that are all hitting that cap. So as I start to tweak that around with my pitching and other stuff, that'll change. The Yahoo ones, I set a cap here. I did. So I'm getting the similar mixes here with my with that. So I'm going to relax the Yahoo cap here and just see how that comes out with some of our running these 5 threes. But let's set that. We'll just give it a 30 there and see what it does here. Moving on to our next game here, Jake, while we're running those in the background, we've got... Oh, was there anything else you had here from...
Nope, I'm ready to move
on that one. We've got the Rockies in Atlanta. Now, this one's somewhat intriguing, 76 degrees, so it's not super hot yet for those of you living in Georgia and don't have to get that RV and start driving just quite yet. But 2 solid pitchers, not in the easiest of matchups. Now, you got Mike Fultonevich, who, if he could just find some sort of out pitch against lefties, I think his life would be oh so glorious. He's got a great strikeout rate, 28% against lefties, 27% against righties since the beginning of last season. That's against 400 lefties, 380 righties. His walks against lefties are horrible, 12%. His hard hit rate, he does get hit relatively hard in the mid 30s against both righties and lefties. So he's someone that I'm okay with, but he hasn't quite taken that next step. And the interesting thing about the Rockies is you start looking at their lineup, it's not horrible, but their results, if we look at the weighted runs created plus, they're a bottom 3 offense each of the last or this year, and then they were bottom 10 last year once we take the park factor out of it. So again, I'm not the old dividing rod's not landing up pointing to one side or the other. It's just saying, well, shit, looks like we're gonna have both hitters and both pitchers in some of our lineups here on the two SP sites. Do you like anything about Fulte? And I think I prefer John Gray more, but I don't like him going against Atlanta, which is never an easy line to face.
Yeah, I like Fulte quite a bit, actually.
Okay, here we go.
I mean, what's not to like? I mean, the lefties towards the bottom of this order, like McMahon and Walters, you get a pitcher spot here. Desmond, righty. Like, there's a bunch of righty. The best bats here, outside of maybe Blackmon and Murphy, but I mean, he wasn't fantastic last year, are from the right side.
Easy
so
there. You're talking about my favorite baseball player. He was hurt.
He was hurt. I agree. And he's coming off.
I loved him with the Mets before he even got to the Nationals, because he hit so many doubles and he was so freaking sneaky. Nobody ever played him and nobody ever drafted him until the double-digit rounds of the season-long drafts. And then he got to the Nationals and the hitting metric revolution. Well, that was right in his wheelhouse there, Jake. He was phenomenal, especially when he went against those evil Mets who abandoned him in his time.
He's also a big Fangraphs guy, so he's got that. He's a baseball nerd for sure.
Is he Eric Sogard baseball nerd style?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm stealing that from someone in chat. I didn't come up with Sogard the baseball nerd, but I think that one should become popular lexicon because of his goggles and the way he looks. So there you go.
Fulte threw 89 pitches in his last start in the minors, so he's, I mean, from what I see, he's good to go unless there is a hard pitch count on him, that one that I'm not seeing. So this is a fine price against the team with the 69 WRC plus against righties so far this season. I mean, they're just not very good against righties. Even when you put in Dahl and you've got Blackmon in there, Fulte can still strike out lefties as he showed last year. He does get touched up from them more often though. So like the righties, I would not like to target against Fulte. The lefties though, the righties, I would not like to target. The lefties, I'd be okay playing Murphy and Blackmon, and maybe Dahl, but more as one-offs. I really like this spot for Fulte, honestly, assuming we don't get some hard pitch count, like 80 pitches or something.
Do you have where they, and I don't have my Fangraph stuff open, do you have where that 69 WRC plus ranks against the league?
Yeah, let me
it was bottom 3 last weekend, but I didn't commit it.
It is 4th. The only teams below them versus righties are the Reds, Marlins, and Giants.
Okay, so and what that means for those of you that are kind of new, so my little pat answer, just to not totally perfect, but it's the easiest way to describe it. So weighted runs created plus is an advanced metric that neutralizes park factors and creates a league-wide baseline of 100 that you then benchmark your teams or your individual players against. So that 100 benchmark compared to the 69, which 69 is nice, but not when it comes to weighted runs created plus. That means that the Rockies are 31% less efficient than the average team going against righties in the same condition or neutralized conditions and situations. That's bad. That is just awful.
Yeah, very bad, very bad. So yeah, I mean, I like. As far as bats here, I'm much more on the Brave side against Gray. Like, I like Gray. I love playing him in DFS in the right spot, but similar to Fulte in that he can strike out lefties, but he does give up a lot more hard contact, and he's just in general worse versus them. So Freeman's really jumping out to me. Love Markakis in the stack. McCann at 3,800 is not a great price, but he does have the platoon split, and then Albies up top. So, yeah, I really like the Braves and Fulte here.
Yeah, and this is one where, I mean, I'm glad we got all day to look at it. We've got the deep dive coming out. We'll have some more input. If it's either, I forget if it's Lofty or Adam writing today with Adam traveling, but we'll have more input as they break down the pitchers. This will kind of help us get in a bit of a direction here where we can pick some. I don't want to say diamonds in the rough. Pick the dog with the least amount of fleas today, Jake. Kind of feels like what we're going to want to do here. And this is going to be a slate where I think it's important to look at it holistically and understand who you're leveraging higher than and who you're trying to go against the field on, and do a better job or a more cognizant job of how you're creating your lineups to take advantages of different situations. So if Syndergaard does poorly, do I want to make sure I have some of the opposite hitters on that side to increase my chances of bettering a large chunk of the field? If I'm going heavy on Fulte, do I want to make sure I do have a couple core lefty stacks here of, or even I guess top 4 would be a better way of saying it, or top 5 stacks, just to offset a Fulte meltdown? And you don't even have to put those in the giant tournaments. So what I like to do on this one, so if I end up with about 40% Fulte, which potentially I could on the 2-pitcher sides, I will go in a couple of the $1 or $2 100-man leagues, Jake, and I'll set up, a distinct, I'm taking these 4 Rockies, or I'm taking these 5 Rockies that I think will do the most damage if something melts down on him. And it's a hedge. It's an insurance play. If he does poorly, I only got to beat, the 100 or 200 mans. I only got to finish with a top 1 or 2% lineup, and I can recoup, some of the money I've paid in entry fees for him. I'm not going to win at all. But if you start doing a lot of your specific hedge lineups in these giant tournaments, getting them in cash doesn't do you squat. So be smart with what your contest selection is when you're doing something like that, because a 1% lineup will have a good chance of finishing top 3 in a 100-man or a 200-man. A 1% lineup in the giant field tournaments will get you maybe 2x your entry fee. That's just how top heavy things are these days. So be smart about it when you're doing something like that. Let's see. On the other side here, Jake, what do you want to do with one Jonathan Gray?
Yeah, I'm not going to get to a bunch of Gray. I rarely get to pitchers against the Braves. They're just a matchup I would like to avoid if I can. And just based on how the slate's going to go, and now we've got one last game, I'm assuming Gray's going to have some sort of ownership, and I'm just not interested in that. I think the matchup against the Braves is just low upside in general. So just give me some Braves bats, and I hope that Gray is somewhat chalky here.
Right. Shout out there to Earl. He's calling Emac the Nats fan. Yes, yeah. Nats and Mariners, the only 2 teams that have never been in the World Series. They're my 2 teams. Geez, Minnesota's been there and won multiple. Jake, of course, you weren't alive for the Homer hanky days, but No, Kirby Puckett was long retired when you came around, right?
Yeah, he was.
Who was your favorite Twin when you were growing up?
I'm not a Twins fan, so that's
okay. So, but did you grow up in Minnesota?
For most of my childhood.
Okay, so from that perspective, what are the Twins that you remember? Like Shane Mack? No, he probably was too. Herbeck? No.
I honestly I only followed the Cubs.
Really? So
I only cared about the Cubs.
Were your parents Cubs fans?
Yeah, my dad and my grandpa.
Right. They have ties to Illinois?
Yep, that's where I lived for like the first 10 years.
Oh, okay. So your formative years. Yeah.
So that was my first team ever, was the Cubs. And never wavered since I moved up here.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's understandable. Let's hit on our next game here. And again, we're going to go over this again at 6 o'clock in the Live Before Lock show with Chris Baggs and myself. We'll have another hour to break down our 6 games. The postponed game there between Chicago and Detroit. Notwithstanding, of course, we've got Zach Godley on here. Let me get over to my weather page because, my weather page doesn't tell me if the roof's closed, but I'm going to say the roof's probably closed because it's 98 degrees at first pitch here. This is
it opened yesterday, I believe.
Oh, it was? All right, I'll go to the page and double check that. But this one, just as a reminder, even though it's an 8-10 game, it's 5-10 out there in Arizona. But we got Yu Darvish, who cannot seem to stop throwing balls outside of the zone. And then you got Zach Godley, never quite lives up to the potential that we gave him or anointed him with from the DFS perspective here. Now he's going against the Cubs. I'm not loving this one. 5.2, yeah, the roof's going to be open. 5.2 implied run total for the Cubbies, 4.9 for Arizona. Do you want anything to do with these pitchers, or these the kind of guys that, because we only have 12 to choose from and we're playing on a 2-pitcher side, are they going to come in at 5 to 10% just because? they are decent enough pitchers, or will they even grace your player pool with their presence?
Godley, I'm torn on what to do with him because, he's a guy I've always liked for the past few years, and he's a guy that I'm okay if he's giving up a couple runs in these starts. But I want to see the swinging strike numbers continue to be great, like to show me he's capable of having a 6-inning 8K game, which I think he is still capable of. And you look at the numbers so far this year, and they're not good. Not very good at all. Swinging strikes have dipped. Same thing with the chase rate and such. He's had one game with a 20% swinging strike rate, which has actually brought that 10.6 way up. And that was against San Diego. He also gave up 6 earned runs in that start. So he's had a tough run of matchups: Dodgers, Red Sox, Braves, Pittsburgh, who's a bunch of lefties that don't really strike out. And then San Diego has been his one okay matchup he's had. I don't know where this matchup lands as far as good, bad, or medium. Looking at the Cubs, they're middle of the pack as far as strikeouts versus righties. I just think Godley's too talented to be 8K and unowned here. So he's going to be a guy that I play a decent amount of. It's not perfect, but at 7% ownership or under 10%, wherever he comes in, I will have more than that by quite a bit, even though it's against my Cubs. They still do have some strikeouts in this lineup.
All right, they're throwing out some Cubs names here in chat. Mark Gray, Sammy Sosa, Kerry Wood.
Sosa, yeah, he was my favorite by far. Mark Pryor.
Mark Pryor's in the mix there. We've got
for 1 year.
Yeah.
Zambrano, I used to love Zambrano.
Is your favorite movie Rookie of the Year?
I've seen that one. That's one that I have seen. It's not my favorite movie, but I did like it because it was the Cubs.
The Cubs. Henry Rowan Gardner. I'm going to drop this Yahoo link again in chat. You come in on that link. I know it looks weird. It's just going to take you to that homepage there. When you come in on that and make your deposit, we get referral credit. We appreciate that. So come in on that link. And that does help us out a lot. And then if you use the promo code AWESEMO, that doesn't do much for us, but you do get a $30 deposit match in Yahoo Sports Rewards points up to your first $30 deposit, and those are available for immediate use. But again, come in on the link for us, because just using that promo code they're not that sophisticated there at Yahoo. It doesn't help us out. Let's see here. What was that? Why am I there? Who was the movie? What was the movie when the kid took over the Minnesota Twins as the manager somehow because his granddad passed away?
I don't know.
Someone will have to let me know what that one is. I liked that one a little bit better than Rookie of the Year. So, but anyway, looking back at today's game, the roof will be open today, and it will be open tomorrow. Pardon me, it will be closed tomorrow. They have designated. Let's see. Anything else you want to talk about here with the Cubbies or the Snakes?
I don't really like Darvish here, so it'll be some Diamondbacks bats, Peralta especially, and Escobar at the top in the 2-3. I don't mind stacking against Darvish. When he loses it really bad, and especially if the roof is going to be open.
Yeah, and there'll be base runners on, and that if he gives up contact and he's already got 2 guys on base, that's when the goodness happens.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the game that's going to end up with me playing more of the pitching than I would like, so I will be doing some, of course, designated stacking against both of them. You've got Mike Minor and Mike Leake. Mike Minor actually a little bit better than we all give him credit for. The Mariners do have a fierce collection of righty bats that are outstanding against lefties. It's the one tricky part, because you got Haninger, Domingo, Santiago, Edwin Encarnacion, Tim Beckham. Those guys are all well above average against lefties. On the other side, we got Mike Leake, who I actually kind of like as a pitcher. His strikeout numbers for him have been ticking up. Of course, we've got more than a decade of track record for him, and he is not a strikeout pitcher. But T-Mobile Park is suiting him relatively well. Little Big League, that's the movie. Little Big League. You should watch that one, Jake. It's a good one.
I'll have to give it a view.
Are there bad baseball movies? I think is the question. The Kid from Left Field with Gary Coleman, that wasn't very good.
Never seen that one.
Oh, I'm guessing nobody in chat has seen that because it probably came out in like 1982. That's my guess. But anyway, back to this one here. I like both pitchers. I don't feel strongly about them, but in the landscape of what we are looking at today, I like both pitchers. So this will be an interesting one for me. And Jake, at least I'll have some player innings remaining as I settle down with the tasty beverage to reflect upon my well productive Saturday and watch the Mariners. I had to give up on them in the 7th inning last night. Thank God I went to bed. They ended up winning in the 11th. But I think I made the proper choice of going to bed early. Tonight I want to stay up and watch it because the game's going to start an hour earlier than it did last night. But talk to me here about the mics. Do you like them? Are you dealing with them? Or do you dislike them?
Yeah, more dealing with them. They're going to both be owned, and it's hard to see how they wouldn't be just based on the other pitchers on the slate. So I think the guy I'm more likely to get overweight on is probably Leak, which is terrifying. It's just like, where else are you going to go? You got to go to Lopez. And that's why I kind of like Godley, taking a little bit of a stand on him right in the same price range. If Miner's going to be 30% and Godley's going to be 7 or 8, like I'll take Godley there more times than not. So it's, Leak doesn't miss a ton of bats, but he is a guy who can go deep into the game. And the Rangers will make anyone look good at times, and it's a bad hitter's park. So give me some Mike Leake, I suppose. Miner, I'm probably going to come in under 30 on just because of that ownership. 30%, one of the highest owned pitchers on the slate. Like I said, I think I'd rather go to a guy like Godley, just allocate some more shares to a different guy.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. That's really fair. Though, I mean, the one thing that's great about Leake, one, the ballpark helps him out tremendously as compared to his time there in Great American Ballpark and such. But just a 4% walk rate against righties and lefties, and that's going back over his last 900 batters. So the ball's in play, he doesn't end up with a ton of base runners, which mitigates the damage quite a bit. If he's given up a rocket double and there's nobody on base, well, tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it. Did it really make a sound? So that one's interesting to me here. But I mean, good God, with Odor and Mazzara healthy and such, that there's some good hitters here.
For sure.
At least in the top 5, the projected lineup. Bottom half, yeah, Logan Forsythe is ass against righties. Wisdom, yeah, not really. Connor Falafa, Delino DeShields, not really going to strike fear in anybody's heart. But we could see home runs from Chu, Odor, Mazzara, and or Gallo. So that's where it gets a little bit rough on that one. And then the Mariners did have to do a hit on their bullpen yesterday because they started off Kikuchi. Kikuchi started off and went like an inning or two, and then they brought in Justice Sheffield. He proceeded to suck for 3 innings, and then they had 7 innings after that because it was extra innings so that the bullpen had to absorb. So just keep that in mind. So in the event Leak is not able to take one for the team, the cavalry really not coming over the hill. And then I mentioned I do like those prominent righty against Minor, even though. Last game of the night here, Jake. Pittsburgh Dodgers. Tough row to hoe here with Musgrove going against never-ending Dodgers lineup. But then we have a Kershaw, who's not the Clayton Kershaw anymore. Well, at least his driver's license still says he is. But watching him pitch, not quite the same. What do you want to do here with the pitchers and then expand on them?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's not the Kershaw of old, but I don't know that he necessarily has to be here. I've got the Pirates being an okay matchup against lefties, and then he's been fine in his first couple starts. Or maybe, has he only had 1 start? I can't remember now.
I believe he's had 2.
Okay. I know I liked what I saw. Just a minuscule total against him. That's, that should be factored into your projections, and it is for mine. So I kind of I'm ending up on Kershaw even when I give him a little bit of a bump down in projection. It's just it's kind of hard to avoid him, especially when I don't like Darvish. I'm not super wild about Syndergaard either, so he's kind of the guy I'll take up top, I suppose.
All right. With regards to the batters, I don't know that I really want to tangle with Kershaw. There's a good LA Dodgers bullpen, not quite as good as it was last year, but still pretty good. So for me, I guess that leaves the Dodgers bats. Now Musgrove, better real life pitcher than he is fantasy pitcher because he doesn't have the massive strikeout rate. Just 20% over his last 600 batters faced. But he has this very nice 4.1 xFIP. He has a 5% walk rate, 47% ground ball rate. You got to like all that. And he doesn't give up the power. Just 167 isolated power against the 269 lefties that he's faced. And even better against fellow righties. Just 100 against the 324 righties. That said, hey, Jock Peterson can always run into one. Cody Bellinger just tied Yelich for the major league lead in home runs and set a Dodgers record for most total bases in the months of March and April, and broke, what was this other one he broke? Most home runs in April. He beat out, what's that guy? Oh, Matt Kemp. Yeah, he was pretty good back. So love Bellinger, but those are really the only standout guys. And then, of course, the Max Muncy, Josh Trolling home run is in play tonight. What do you want to do with the hitters as we wind down our show here?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in like full Dodger stacks. I really have a ton of respect for Musgrove. So I don't know if I have enough respect for Musgrove to actually get to playing him here at 9K. It's just kind of a weird pitching slate all around. I don't want bats against Kershaw. I'll just get that out of the way. Besides maybe Jung Ho Gong, who's been smoking lefties in the few times he's played against them so far this season. It's just like I'll take a Muncy one-off. I'll take a Jock or Seager or Bellinger one-off, but I'm not getting to a lot of Dodgers stacks.
Yeah, that I think is well founded. Let me see. I'm going to drop it. The league did fill, so congrats. But we're going to run the rest of the playoffs. The Fred Van Vliet fan club leagues. We for sure will be giving rest of the season NBA passes to anybody that wins it. I'll probably arrange for us to throw in another bonus prize, especially if you're already an Osmo member and you're carrying an avatar, the Osmo avatar in this one. We'll see if we can't get you a t-shirt or maybe a 1 month premium or a week premium or something. But this is the, I'm going to drop it in there. I don't know if you'll get to see it. All right, it won't let me do that, but let me drop my Twitter pinned tweet in there. But join these contests because this, I'm not going to be tweeting the link out, but we're gonna run the notifications out of these contests or out of this Osmo group in Yahoo, or pardon me, in DraftKings. So you're going to want to be joining the Osmo group here. And that Twitter link will get you in there because that's how we're going to be giving away some more added on prizes. And the key thing is, I've already had 3 people message me during the show saying, oh, the league's full. Can you make it bigger next time? Yes, I can. But if the leagues don't fill and they're 40, 50, 100 mans, they don't run. So get in this Osmo DK league. We're going to do some swag giveaways and some other stuff, but I need us to get the critical mass in there. So I know when I post a contest at 50, it's going to fill and I don't have to chase a bunch of people down to get in there. We're just going to run these contests for $1. It's the same DK payout, same everything, but we're just going to have some fun with it. I got to play Fred Van Vliet tonight. You guys don't have to. You know the drill on that one, but no excuses. We'll definitely run these the rest of the Toronto Phillies series, and I want to make them 50 as the baseline. So jump in that Osmo league so you can get notified when those come out. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here? Thank goodness we have a 2:15 lock, Jake, because I let us meander a little more than we normally do on this show.
Yeah,
I don't get to work with you very often, so
I know.
It's fun. It's just shooting the BS here. Good times, man.
I have an NHL show coming up in 20 minutes. If you guys want to join that 2-game slate, but we'll talk about the games, talk about last night, talk about short slate strategy. It's been profitable for me and for a lot of other people. In fact,
I'm up $500 in playoff hockey in 14 days.
So,
and I'm playing $40 a day. That's pretty good.
That's very, very good. So come join for that. It's a small crew, but pretty interactive one. So I like the short slate shows, and I'll have the screen share up, and we can maybe build some lineups or show various builds. The lock is at 3 Eastern, so you're going to want to get your entries in now. It looks like DK, the big $10 is already almost full. Or I guess big. It's not big for MLB, but NHL, that's about as good as we can do for 2 gamers. So join that. I'll be on in about 20 minutes after I get some food.
Perfect. We're going to turn this into a podcast. I'll put the timestamps on there so you know when the late stuff starts. That's not going to help you, but that's what we're going to do all Saturdays going forward. Since we're breaking down all-day slates, it's not like basketball where they're all grouped together. Speaking of basketball, you're going to get Fast Eddie Fair live before lock tonight. I'll come out around 6:30 or 6:40. Again, hit that like and subscribe button there on the Yahoo channel. Get that notification bell so you know when we're going live with shows. You're also going to get live before lock with myself. And Chris Spags will probably go slightly after 6 o'clock. It's a 7:10 start. Now we're down to just 6 games. But we'll probably go on there for a full hour. Heck, we may even do a little bit of a crossover and talk about some basketball on that as well if we don't get a ton of questions, but we should have be able to take a lot of questions tonight. So check us out here. You can follow Jake on Twitter at JCarry. I am at EMLB DFS. Again, that pinned tweet there on my Twitter is join that Awesemo DK group. We're going to run more contests, giving away swag, subscriptions, stuff like that. But we got to get that critical mass because I want to make those contests. I want them to fill because if they don't fill, they don't run. And then it's just normal DK payouts. Those will be for $1. Enjoy those. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. Gamers, good luck.